Angel Tejerina is another example of a veteran physical healer who spent many years of his life traveling throughout Bolivia and other countries in South America to visit clients. He is also Romero's uncle and has been another mentor to him as he studies to become a Kallawaya healer. Don Angel is 69 years old and has been traveling since he was 38 or 40 years old, by then an experienced doctor. He recalls his journey, which takes him through the Bolivian provinces of Oruro, Cochabamba, Santa Cruz, Potosí, Sucre, Tajuruca, Padilla, Sudañez, Camalga, Tarija, Villazón, Tapiza, Atacha, Antamarca, Saavedra, Huarone, Uncea, and Chaki, all on foot with the accompaniment of his brother. Although it is the men who become doctors in the Kallawaya community, there is a constant flow of herbal knowledge from grandparents and parents to children. From an early age, Kallawaya children are taught the medicinal and nutritional properties of the most important plants gathered in this region, so that by the time a Kallawaya reaches adolescence, basic herbal health care is part of their schema, whether they choose to become a Kallawaya healer or not. Because Kallawaya men travel beyond their community to heal clients, most speak Spanish. Yet, many of the women have not traveled far outside their hometowns, and if so, usually only to other Kallawaya village in the Bautista Saavedra region or to La Paz, where there is such a large indigenous population that Spanish is not required for communication. Thus, many women we encounter in Curva either only spoke Quechua or could understand Spanish but were much more comfortable replying in their native language. The women do play a very important role in the Kallawaya community, as midwifery and mother-infant care is solely the responsibility of the women healers, or parteras. Candelaria Bustillos is a 57-year-old midwife. Her father, Victor Bustillos, was a prominent Kallawaya healer, as was her grandfather, who kept a large patient clientele in Peru. Although she has been learning about medicinal plants since she was 15, she has only become a partera for the last 10 years since her husband, also respected healer, passed away. None of Candelaria's siblings chose to continue the healing occupation of their parents, and only one of her sons, now 20 years old, is planning on becoming a Kallawaya doctor. Senora Bustillos collects hot, temperate, and cold plant types from areas around Curva to prepare teas and lotions to treat abdominal pain and other issues associated with pregnancy. Although she works alone as a midwife, she has become involved as an organizer at the Curva Hospital and expresses her opinion that an effort from the entire Kallawaya community and beyond is necessary to prevent the loss of the Kallawaya culture. Like many women in Curva, Candelaria has lived in Curva all her life, and thus is much more comfortable responding to questions in Spanish in her native Quechua. Senovia Paye, on the other hand, only speaks Quechua, so Johnny and Romero helped translate for our discussion. Zenobia is 70 years old, the eldest and most respected partera in Curva. From a very young age, Doña Paye studied alongside her mother, grandmother, and older sister, all of whom were also midwives, to learn a great deal about medicinal plants. Don Maximo, her nephew, is a very important Kallawaya doctor, but none of her own 4 children have chosen to learn the healing tradition. She shares, however, that she was already teaching her 4-year-old granddaughter, Yaki, who was by her side the entire interview, about different plants. Zenobia, like Candelaria, works as a midwife in the Curva hospital as well, not only treating pregnant women, but also treating a range of ailments affecting young children and infants. As a partera for 44 years, Zenobia says that she has seen and treated every baby in every Kallawaya town from Curva until Cheresani. When first examining a patient, Doña Paye feels their risk, which will help her prepare an effective herbal treatment. She prescribes a specific tea of 3 or 4 different plants as a prenatal treatment, and after birth will prescribe another postnatal treatment to help the mother become fully restored. She also uses certain massage techniques on the mother's abdomen with herbal lotions to help relieve contraction pain during labor. She has plenty of experience with breech births as well, and has successfully delivered a baby feet first many times. She even spoke about a recent woman who came to her after visiting a Western hospital in La Paz. The obstetrician had told the woman that due to certain complications with the baby's positioning, she would have to have a scheduled cesarean section or risk the baby's death. Senovia, after checking the patient's pulse and examining her abdomen, said that the surgery would be unnecessary. Within a month, Senovia delivered the baby in her home, healthy and naturally. Typically, Senovia will host the mother and the newborn to provide constant care and comfort for the first few days after birth. After the baby is born, she cleans the infant thoroughly with soap and an herbal soak. Although she treats many children with issues ranging from fever to skin rashes and respiratory problems, the most common child ailments, she says, are stomach and intestinal illness due to unsanitary food and water consumption. Florentino Mayma, a Kallawaya doctor in training and son of ritualistic healer Pedro Nina, also spoke to the often conflictual interaction between Western medicine and holistic healers. Florentino claims that doctors in large hospitals can be cold-hearted, with some caring more about making money than the overall welfare of their patients. His own wife gave birth to their 4 children completely tranquil in the hands of a Kallawaya midwife, with only herbal teas as a treatment. Resentment between old and new may be deeply rooted in more than just modern perceptions, as Florentino's historical account reveals. Florentino starts by making it clear that people have lived in Curva before Christ even lived, well before Christians came from Europe. He says that the basic structure of the town has remained since Incan times. There are 3 main roads through Curva that lead to Peru, each of which belonged to one of 3 Incan kings, whom were brothers and each used their own road. However, the Kallawayas had been in the area using plants for curative powers for many generations before, and the Kallawaya doctors were hired by the Incan rulers to serve as their personal healers. We now know that the Kallawayas can be genetically and culturally linked to the ancient Tiwanaku civilization, which fragmented into many tribes in 1000 AD. Around 1520, however, the Spaniards had arrived in Curva, bringing with them, in the following years, a large effort at converting everyone to Christianity and seeking gold, which Florentino emphasizes never existed in the region. Florentino further says that the Kallawayas were forced to go to church when the Spaniards ruled, but eventually Curva and the surrounding towns forced their Spanish patrones out of the villages and reclaimed their land. Florentino told us that where the 2 rivers meet in Curva are the ruins of the old Christian convent. He also says that there hasn't been a Christian priest in Curva for many years, although his father, who was born in 1930, remembered when there was a missionary in the town for some years. Baptisms and weddings are still occasionally held in the church in a small neighboring town, and there is a pianist on Sundays, although no priest regularly holds Mass. He says that the festivals they celebrate are a mix of Kallawaya, Incan, and Christian celebrations, such as the festivals of San Pedro, San Marco, San Roque, Virgen de las Nieves, Pachamama, and the Sun God. When visiting many Kallawaya homes, it was interesting to observe Catholic idols, such as crosses, virgin statuettes, and Catholic calendars, although Florentino, like the others in Curva, expressed that the Kallawayas are not Catholic, but these are merely cultural objects. Pedro Nina, at 78 years old, does remember when the last priest, Father Carlos, was in Curva. He said, however, that unlike nearby Charasani, there are no haciendas or work communes in Curva, because the patrones were kicked out much sooner from Curva. Past European researchers have described the Kallawayas as hostile and unwelcoming. Pedro Nina explained that the Kallawayas in Curva simply wanted freedom, so they used violence with the Spaniards until they left. Don Pedro's father passed on his medical knowledge to him, and Don Pedro is an expert on plants from the Yungas region, and is also able to diagnose ailments and tell luck and fortune from coca readings. In addition to being a Kallawaya of ritual and medicinal plants, Pedro Nina is a former authority of Curva, a position passed on by popular vote every few years. In his generation, all of the men in the village would begin training to become a Kallawaya doctor at around 22 or 23 years old. Now, only his eldest son chose this path. On one of his trips to Caranabi,